Hey there, fellow travelers. Welcome to the Tolkien Road, episode 263. Greta, what is
Hey.
shaking?
Hey, not much. I feel like you always catch me like off guard and you start recording while I'm like making a weird face or staring off into space or something.
I wait for precisely the moment that you're making a weird face.
I thought that was
I say to myself, that's a
probably
weird
the
face.
case.
Boom, record.
Record.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But shaken. Yeah, just the usual.
The usual.
Yeah.
That's good enough.
Yeah. Trying to, keep it real.
Right on.
Yeah. How about you?
The usual. The usual. The usual.
We so boring.
In this episode, we're discussing why 2022 will be perhaps the biggest year for Tolkien fandom ever and what our plan is for the coming year.
Oh, sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So thought we'd get the what's coming in 2022 out of the way before like the day before the next year, which is what we've done in the past.
Is that what we've done in the past?
Yeah.
Like we've recorded like on New Year's Eve.
Well, like
or
a
New
couple
Year's
of days,
Eve.
like late December.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
okay. Yeah. That's good. I was just wondering like what the motivation was to read and make it record it a little sooner than that. Just to give people more time to get excited.
Well, because it's like why wait until the last minute to talk about it, right? Like we got to kind of do some prep, and I want people to know what's coming, right? Because I'm going to talk about like not only what's coming for Tolkien fandom, but what our plan is, right?
Okay.
So I like our plan. So
cool. I'm excited to hear our plan
about it.
Because you know what? I'm going to hear about it just along with the rest of y'all's.
Yep.
So that'll be fun.
I'm going to be all like, here's our plan, Greta. Whoopsh. Right.
Take it or leave it.
That's right.
All right.
Speaking of whoopsh, before we get started, we'd like to give a double up Air 5 to our patrons. You ready for this, Greta?
Yes, absolutely.
3, 2, 1. Whoopsh. Nice.
We're getting pretty good at that.
We are synced up.
Indeed.
We are in sync like Justin Timberlake and Lance Bass.
Ooh, it's a throwback.
Special thanks to this episode's executive producers, Andrew T, John R, Ms. Anonymous, and Redhawk.
Thank you, guys.
And please support the Tolkien Road by visiting patreon.com/Tolkien Road. More on that in just a moment. Subscribe, rate, and review us on iTunes and other podcasting platforms. If you are a 5-star fan of the Tolkien Road, you can really help us out by heading over to iTunes or your preferred source for the show and dropping us a rating and review. When you do that, it helps get the word out about the Tolkien Road, which helps us to keep on evering on.
Indeed, it does.
It's time for the weekly Tolkien Road Air 5 for all those watching us on YouTube.
All right, let's do it.
3, 2, 1. Nice. You too can be a part of the weekly Tolkien Road Air 5. Just head on over to YouTube where this episode is posted and give us your best whoopsh in the comments below. It's HWHAPISH.
I think you guys can spell it however the heck you want to.
Well, they will.
They will.
And they will.
I'm just giving them license.
These people don't listen to me.
Maybe they do. I just want them to know they don't have to if they don't feel like it.
I'm just trying to give them my best philological advice. I believe, whoopsh is a I'm pretty sure it's like Anglo-Saxon for that's awesome.
That's awesome.
Right.
You might not be far off on that.
I've been at this podcast a long time. I'm just saying, it kind of absorbs into the nature of who you are.
Yes.
All the things.
Indeed.
All right. So
without further ado,
why 2022 will be the biggest year for Middle-earth since the release of the Silmarillion. So
when was the Silmarillion released?
1977.
So that's how many years ago?
A lot of years. That's 40. It'll be 45 years next year.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's cool.
All right. So and maybe even honestly the biggest year since the Silmarillion, definitely the biggest year since the Silmarillion, and maybe even the biggest year since the Lord of the Rings itself was published, right? So it's going to be a really big year, right?
Okay.
It will be the year that Silmarillion, Numenor, and a variety of other names only known to Tolkien geeks like us become household names. right? That's the thing that's going to happen.
Mhm.
Just like Peter Jackson's films created a popular phenomenon that made The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit essentially familiar to all of us, right? The money behind Lord of the Rings on Prime ensures that the same will happen to at least the Legends of Numenor. And if rumors are true, perhaps to some of the more important aspects of the First Age as well. So some of the rumors I've seen out there are that like the first few episodes are actually going to kind of be background episodes. They're going to give a lot of like what happened in the First Age. And that might be why we saw that picture of, you know, what we had like what we thought our money is on, that's Galadriel, right? And that she's looking at the two trees in Valinor and at some point, you know, early on the timeline of the Silmarillion, right? When the two trees are still alive. So, you know, all of these things, two trees, right? These things are going to become part of the popular culture lexicon, right? They're going to be, you know, they're going to be things that we've all known about for a long time, if you know, especially if you've been listening to this podcast. But just if you're a Tolkien fan, if you read the Silmarillion, you know these things. But pretty soon they're going to be a part of everybody's vocabulary. It's going to be, I mean, it's going to be huge. So, you know, the anticipation is already here, and the only official releases we have are a fascinating photo and a short synopsis. So people are already talking about it, and literally we have like nothing to go on except for a photo and a short synopsis, right? So people are already getting ramped up for this, and they got so much money behind it. This thing, it's kind of like a bit too big to fail kind of thing, right? There's so much money in it that it's too big.
I hope you're right.
Well, I mean, that's the mentality. I'm saying they're going to put so much money into this thing. Now, the question of whether it's any good or not was one we're going to have to all explore together. But we're going to be, you know, I don't know when these things are going to drop, but it will be, you know, it could be any day now, right? You know, teasers, trailers, rumors, photos, first looks, new photos. It's all coming, right? Before you know it, and I'm sure it's going to kind of surprise us all when it happens. All right.
Like when the teasers are dropped, you mean?
Yeah. I don't think we're going to be told ahead of time. Maybe we will once they've done some. There'll be like a new one coming up or something like that. But you know, I expect that we're going to be deluged, you know, sooner rather than later with all kinds of marketing, which leads to all kinds of questions and speculation. All right. So that's a huge deal, right? That in and of itself is something that we're going to be talking a lot about over between now and September of next year.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
We're going to have a lot to say about that.
As we always do.
But we also know, and this is what takes it even to the next level, right? Remember that thing we talked about a few months ago, the War of the Rohirrim, right? That animated film that's going to be coming out.
Yes,
right?
Yep.
It's going to be by New Line. It's basically going to be like the, you know, the same group that own the rights to the Lord of the Rings films and the Hobbit films, right? They've still got those, and they've got all this lore within the appendices for the film rights. And so they're like, well, let's make some more films. Let's kind of do what Amazon's doing with the TV rights, and they're turning in this, you know, creating this show from like notes and sketches and that kind of thing. Well, we're going to do the same thing over here. And so that's going to be a big deal too, right? So come, I think springtime, early summer, it's just going to be a fever pitch, right? It's going to be, and maybe sooner, right? It's going to be this fever pitch of just excitement, anticipation. What can we expect from these things? You know, we're going to be arguing about everything before we know anything, right? And it's going to be a really exciting time. It's honestly going to be a lot of fun. I have been looking forward to this kind of lead up time ever since they announced that they were going to be doing this, which is now like, gosh, I can't even remember, like 3 or 4 years ago. It seems
it's been a while,
right? Since at least with Amazon's stuff.
Right. That War of the Rohirrim, is that a movie or a series?
Yeah, know? it's gonna be a film based on the life of Helm Hammerhand, right? So it's like early history of Rohan.
Right. Okay.
Right.
Gotcha.
And it's gonna be anime.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
So and we talked about, you know, we did an episode on that when we talked about why that one's so exciting. And I personally think it's really exciting just because I have been an advocate for using anime to explore some of these different storylines. But I just think that, you know, if these things are the success that people are hoping they are, then we're going to see, you know, this, you know, world of Tolkiendom kind of opening up.
Yeah.
And we're going to have a lot to talk about that as far as how we, as the fans who have been here for a long time, think about that and feel about that. Right. when we gripe about things, we're going to be accused of like, gatekeeping, or, of being like, I don't know, just sour about everything, right? Nothing can please us. And it's kind of like, well, you're talking about J.R.R. Tolkien here. You're talking about Middle Earth here, right? And I think there's a reason to have that perspective, especially in Tolkien's case. And so we'll cover a little bit of that here shortly. And who knows what else? Who knows what other news is going to drop, right? I mean, if War of the Rohirrim is a success, then we might find, like, within, while that maybe even before the Lord of the Rings on Prime show comes out, we might even find that they're like, okay, we're going to do another film because this one was such a success, right? And we're going to do this story, right? It's kind of like, it's one of these, the future is wide open in a really like wide possibility kind of sense, a very optimistic sense in terms of creativity. And I just find it extremely exciting. Partly because it gives us so much as Tolkien fans to talk about. And also I would say this too, to welcome new fans into the world of like this level of Tolkien fandom, right? The kind of Tolkien fandom that wants to dive in and know all about the lore, not just like funny GIFs about hobbits and, and this kind of thing, but like wants to actually get into the stories. There's gonna be a whole lot more people that have never been exposed to these things that all of a sudden are going to care.
Yeah.
Right.
It's going to make it accessible. And
they're going to want to go like we, like you and I did when we first saw the Lord of the Rings films years ago. They're going to want to go from that, and they're going to want to say, I want to know more about the actual stories. I want to know what was actually written. Right. With this, they're going to want to read a Calabaith. They're going to want to read of the Rings of Power in the Third Age. They're going to want to read probably parts of the Silmarillion, if not all of it. Yeah. So it's just, man, and it's going to happen even before the show hits. Right. Yeah. Because we're going to see those trailers and teasers and like you said, all that marketing stuff that's that they'll be doing for sure is going to get people ramped up before the show actually airs. Yeah, for sure. And so I, for one, am really excited to welcome all those like, new fans in, right? Those people who want to go deeper. Just to be clear, we're not going to call them bandwagon hoppers. No. Because I mean, everybody in some sense is a bandwagon hopper. The only people who aren't bandwagon hoppers are, people like David Bigwood or Carl Hostetter, right? Right. who have been with this stuff for years, right? Who have, well before the Peter Jackson films were around, they knew all this stuff. They were there, to read the Silmarillion before most of us had even like heard of the Lord of the Rings. Yeah, right. True. So, there's nothing wrong with that. Like every one of us has something that got us into Tolkien, right? Every one of us has some threshold that we have to cross in order to say, I want to go deeper into this. So I just find it really exciting. I can't wait for all those people to kind of jump in and discover just these incredible stories, these incredible legends. Maybe our children will be among them. I hope so. I have kind of a personal goal of making sure that my two older children that we read the Lord of the Rings, before our daughter graduates from high school here within the next year. So we got her to watch the movies last Christmas. She loved them. And so now she said she wants to read the books. Of course, she's got a lot going on right now, but I'm going to make it happen somehow. Yeah. Make it a priority. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So 2022, going to be a very exciting year for Tolkien fandom. It's going to be kind of the year that Middle Earth takes another massive leap forward. And like, it's just, who knows what 2022 and beyond hold. So let's talk about what our plan is for 2022. All right. That's the Tolkien Road plan. Yeah. The Tolkien Road plan. So regarding Lord of the Rings on Prime and War of the Rohirrim, we are here for all of it, right? We are very excited for all of it. We're going to be talking about every detail that gets officially released, right? I'm not too big on all of the, recounting every single rumor that I hear. If I hear any particularly juicy ones, I might mention them, but when it's official, we're here to talk about it, right? When there's official things to talk about, we are here for it, to have 20-minute discussions about single photos and what exactly they mean and who exactly is in the photo, right? Absolutely. You can come to the Tolkien Road and get that discussion. All right. Argument. Well, an argument too. Yeah, you can have the argument. You can argue with us as well. Hopefully, and this is not something, this is something I'm hoping to do more in 2022. Get into doing some live streaming every once in a while, right? And maybe even more frequently than that. We'll see how it goes when we do get started on it. But it's really exciting. There's so many things to talk about I know there's going to be so many things to talk about, because just a few years ago, all of this seemed utterly impossible, right? Like I remember, I think we were even doing an episode of what's coming in, the next year when the news from Amazon dropped, right? What's the future of Middle Earth? I think there's an episode actually called The Future of Middle Earth that we did a long time ago. And literally on that we were recording that episode or about to record that episode when the news of the Amazon deal hit, right? So, and at that point it was like, oh, the Silmarillion will never become, never get made, they'll never sell the rights to it. And then all of a sudden, fast forward a few years and here we are, we're right on the precipice of it. Yeah. So we're very excited about what this could mean for the future of storytelling in Middle Earth. It will test whether modern storytellers have what it takes to live up to Tolkien's utterly unique vision.
Indeed. Yeah.
Can they successfully carry on his legacy? I don't know. We'll have to see, right? That's a huge challenge. And I know there's very talented people out there, but we all know, because we've spent so much time over the course of, 6+ years and 260 something episodes, the mind of Tolkien does not work like most other minds, right? It just doesn't. And so we're going to be seeing if they can live up to what they've been handed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a big shoes.
And really that's kind of where I want our voices to be heard, right? The two of us and all of you all, right, as we listen. Like I said, we've been at this for over 6 years plus 260 plus episodes. In that time, I've only become more passionate about and enamored with the stories of Middle Earth and the mind of their maker, J.R.R. Tolkien, right? I mean, you guys know that's what we get into here. It's not just about the lore. We love the lore, but it's about why this lore? Where did this lore come from? What's behind all of this? His mind and creative vision were countercultural in his own time, and perhaps even more so today. And as you all know, he has changed and shaped my life on a very deep level. I owe him so much, and I know that many of you feel the same. All right, he's changed a lot of our lives. Reading the Lord of the Rings for me was a life-changing experience, and it was a life-changing experience in a moment, in the moment of reading it, but it's also a life-changing experience in a way that it just kind of continues to work itself out in my life, right? The principles, the things, all of these ideas, the characters and how they react to the conflicts they face, all of these things are, become a part of you and become a part of how you see the world. And so because of that, I know for sure, I feel such a debt of gratitude to Tolkien. I look up to him, but he's a man. I'd love to shake his hand, right? And I'd love to get to the other side and shake his hand one day. So with regard to the impending popularization sea change that we are going to see in the next year, I want this humble little podcast to unfailingly rep for one thing. Would Tolkien approve? That's the big question for me. That's going to be kind of our mantra when it comes to Lord of the Rings on Prime, when it comes to War of the Rohirrim, when it comes to everything that is the future of Middle Earth and popular culture. Would Tolkien approve? That's really the key question. Tolkien gave us these stories. I firmly believe that those who expand upon and adapt them have a sacred responsibility to do so with severe attentiveness and respect to his mind. I can't imagine what it would feel like for me if I had spent my entire life creating something, and then I went and I saw, and then I had a chance to see what others did with it, other artists did with it, and turned it into. I would want to be able to look at that and say, yeah, they get it, right? They got it. They paid attention, right? They cared enough to get my opinion in any way they could get it, to find what I would think about this and be true to that, right? And we know that those kinds of things matter to Tolkien because we know some of the stories about what people tried to convince him to do with his stories on the big screen, right? All you got to really say is, Beatles, Lord of the Rings, right? No offense to the Beatles whatsoever, but somebody actually had that idea. Okay. and yeah, that's just, and there were other ideas like that pitched to Tolkien, and you're just like, so many people don't quite get it. I don't quite get what this is all about. So that's the big key question. Would Tolkien approve? What would Tolkien think about this? And sometimes that's an easy question to answer. Sometimes that's not such an easy question to answer. But that's why we're here. We're here to try to discover that. We're here to take what has he said? How can we arrive at what he might think about that?
Right. And even though he's not around in the flesh any longer, he's left plenty of writings behind, right? Between his letters and then this new History of Middle Earth book. And, like there's plenty of resources. You can't like text him or call him and be like, hey, what do you think? But there's plenty, like his opinion has been written down in multiple places.
For sure. So. And that's why, I very deliberately decided that we needed to at least spend some time with the History of Middle Earth series this year, because you get into that and it's vast. There's so much it would be, not really possible. I mean, it would be possible, but it would take us way too much time in the right now to do like a read through of the History of Middle Earth like we did for Silmarillion and Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. But it was important to spend time with that to understand what's in there. What is this? What period did this come from? How does this relate to the Silmarillion itself? How does this relate to the Lord of the Rings itself? And to see, especially with the later volumes, all of these things where he's like trying to go back and explain what he meant about things, right? Explain the ideas behind certain things.
Right.
All of those things matter. And he's given us all those things. And so it's like, pay attention, right? This, you love this work. It's worth paying $500 million to bring this to the TV screen. If that's the case, then it's worth paying attention to what he thought,
Do
right?
the research
to where this stuff came from. That's why we spent, for some of you, and this got really annoying, I know, but for some of you, like, that's why we spent time going into the questions of religious and Catholic, like, what does he mean by that? Right. And for some people, they think he means a certain thing and they're like, no, thank you. And that's not actually what he means. Right. But nevertheless, if he said that, right, then it's important to take the time to understand what he meant. It's important to take this time.
Everything that he did.
Exactly. Yeah. Otherwise, you're going to end up with something that that might make a lot of money, but it's not really going to live up to what makes Middle Earth special in the first place.
And it's going to make a whole lot of Tolkien fans mad.
This indeed, right? And honestly, I think in the long run, it's the things where they put the care into creating a true work of art. If you can optimize that, right? I think of a lot of like Pixar films where they made a ton of money and they were really well done, right? They're works of art. Like, there's certain Pixar films that are like, I mean, they're basically kids films, but I can go back and watch them, a couple of times a year because they're so well done. Right. I think, for example, of the animated Spider-Man film, the Into the Spider-Verse that came out, right? It was super well done, right? It could have been just a cash grab, right? They could have been like, we'll just make an animated Spider-Man film and make lots of money because it's Spider-Man, right? But they did something unique. They did something, but they stayed true to, to the core of what the story was all about. So, that's what we're here to advocate for, right? I mean, we're, again, we're like, we are a Hobbit of Tolkien podcasts here, right? How many of the great minds, how many of the people that do Lord of the Rings on Prime even care what we're saying right now? I don't know if any of them ever listen to us, right? But if they do, right, if they want opinions, I want to be able to give them an opinion that I think is true to what Tolkien would have thought, right? As someone who has taken the time to create 260 episodes of this podcast, to do this for 6 years, I want to be able to give them a really solid opinion.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that's fair. Yeah. I'm also realizing that I misspoke earlier. I meant to say the new Nature of Middle Earth book, not the new History of Middle Earth book.
Oh, right.
But see, that just shows that there's so many resources out there that they can reference to make sure they get this right.
Yeah. And it's interesting with that because there are things about Numenor in there that I'm kind of like, man, I bet the Amazon people are kind of like, I wish I kind of had this, sooner. Right. It's like little note that Carl Hostetter digs up, and then some executive at Amazon gets a bill from the writers at Amazon's like, Tolkien said this, and it's like, that's going to cost us $5 million in reshoots. And he's like, oh yeah, it's like,
yeah, right.
Oh my
gosh, that's so funny.
Carl's little editorial notes, and then it's like $5 million for Amazon, right? So
like, oh no, Gandalf's robe is all wrong.
Right.
His hat is wrong. Everything's wrong about Gandalf.
Yeah.
We have to go back and redo it.
Gandalf's hat is blue. And he doesn't have a mustache. Yeah. He just has the beard.
It's the beard.
It's in there. That's what Tolkien said. Just saying. You can go watch my video on YouTube about it. All right. So we're called the Tolkien Road because we strive to be unfailingly loyal to the road, the way of being that Tolkien carved out in his writings, to the incredible legends and consoling philosophy of life that he left to the world. While I aim to be optimistic about all of these Middle-earth creative projects, I share the concerns that many of you have. So let me reiterate that before I go into those concerns. I want to be optimistic about these things. I'm not here to be like, it can't possibly live up to Tolkien, right? I'm not here to be that guy, right? I am excited about these things. I'm excited to see Numenor come to life. I'm excited by the possibility of like Valinor coming to life on the screen. So I'm optimistic. I'm excited about the future and the possibility of telling new stories. I think Tolkien gave us something to like as a gift, right? And to continue to develop into, he gave us kind of that seed that we want to develop into something much greater, right? And I think in theory, he'd be okay with that. But I do share those same concerns that many of you have. Will these works live up to the storytelling standards that we find in Lord of the Rings and the Silmarillion? Kind of already raised that question. We'll see. Will we be subjected to themes and visions that violate the very core of who Tolkien was, right? Will wealthy and powerful parties inject their own agendas into Middle-earth? Looking at you, Jeff Bezos, right? You have what they call the FU money, right? And I'm sure there's lots of people who with influences on these things that talk about that, right? So look, you probably have the ability to do whatever you want, right? To do whatever your own agenda might be, okay? And our plea with you as Tolkien fans is show some respect, right? Show some respect. Show some respect to the man who gave you this thing in the first place, that as a child, you may have been, I don't know, but you may have been in love with and fascinated by these stories, right? I share all of those concerns that many of you have, right? And I will say that we know so little at this point. We know so little actual fact. We know so little officially that it's hard to, like, you don't even know, like, people are shouting about problems that I'm not sure even exist at this point, right? And my advice to everybody, and the mindset I'm going to have is, I'm not going to talk about problems until they're actually problems, right? I'm not going to talk about, I've said what I think should be the guidelines of people. I said that they should strive to be true to Tolkien, right? In all of the different areas, they should strive to, not violate his work by introducing themes that have nothing to do with it and modern, contemporary agendas, right? That's a very orcish thing to do. That's a very Sauronish thing to do. I will just say that, right? Morgothish thing to do, I would say, right? Don't do that, right? And that's kind of the general advice. But when it comes to specifics, we just have to wait and see what the specifics are, right? Because Tolkien had a supple mind. All right. You can, again, see the nature of Middle-earth, and you can see that, right? He was thinking very deeply about a lot of different issues, some things that, like, honestly will surprise you. Okay. But my whole point is, what would Tolkien think, right? Would Tolkien approve, right? Tolkien, I think, had a mind that works more like the elves than most of us realize, right? Remember that whole line about, do not go to the elves for advice, for they will say both no and yes, right?
Yes.
I think Tolkien was kind of like that.
Mm-hmm.
He was an academic after all. He could see a lot of different sides to the equation.
Yep.
But then on the other hand, he also had strong feelings about certain things. He also had strong beliefs about certain things. So again, I think we have to be true, and we have to ask that question. would Tolkien approve?
Mhm.
So
That's not necessarily gonna be an easy question.
no.
I mean, because of all the reasons you just laid out.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like I can't talk about specific issues until they're actually issues.
No, and that's a complete waste of time.
Right.
I mean, there's just no reason.
Yeah.
There's so many other things we can talk about.
And honestly, it's also, I feel like it's a little unfair to the artists and the writers who are working on these things in the first place.
Give
right?
them a chance, right?
We're going to give them a chance.
Give them a chance.
But we're also going to hold them accountable.
Well,
right.
For sure.
Once we've actually seen
Once we've seen. Yes. Yes.
So that's, that's our goal, is to ask that question. Would Tolkien approve? And we're going to avoid knee jerking. And we promise to think carefully about the many questions that arise before answering them. So, oh yeah. We've talked a lot about Lord of the Rings on Prime. We've talked a lot about War of the Rohirrim and all that stuff. But here's the thing. We're not going to just become a What's Happening Now in Middle Earth podcast. We began this show in 2015 as a chapter by chapter walkthrough of Tolkien's works, and we've covered a lot of ground so far. You agree with that, Greta? Greta's
yes.
like,
It's like, you better believe it.
So, and Greta's hearing this announcement for the first time, but I'm excited to announce that with our first episode in 2022, we'll be returning to the Silmarillion. We're going to go back to the Silmarillion, and we're going to do a chapter by chapter walkthrough of the Silmarillion once again. Greta's like, uh-oh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, I think actually that's good.
Yeah.
I think that's good. Because just my experience rereading a Calabath, and I never did part 2.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Fine.
Yeah.
Totally fine.
Maybe we can do that next week. No, I'm just kidding. I won't put you on the spot for that. Maybe soon.
Sooner rather than later.
Maybe before the end of the year, we can do your second read through of or second part of Calabath.
Yeah, that would be good. That would be good.
Yeah.
But I was just gonna say that having had the opportunity to reread that, I mean, reread it in light of all the ground that we've covered since the first time we've been through the Silmarillion, I think a reread is going to be really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is. Because I'm kind of one of those people that it's like, there's so many good books out there.
Yeah.
Why would I spend my time rereading something that I've already read? Because I almost feel, I don't necessarily feel that it's a waste of time, but I kind of do. Like, I kind of like, I've already read this. But I will say, I just recently reread Jayber Crow for book club. And
which is who's that by again?
Wendell Berry.
Wendell Berry, thank you. Sorry. I was going to say Wilford Brimley, but that was right.
Well, you got the initials right, I guess.
I wish I had.
Maybe.
Like the classic by Wilford Brimley, MA in English. What's up?
I like her Belmont.
I wonder if Wendell
like,
Berry ever gets tired of being called Wilford Brimley.
Is that like a author? Is he a person?
He's got to be people have got to call him Wilford Brimley all the time. I just know it has to happen.
But who is that? A real person?
Wilford Brimley?
Yeah.
He's the guy like you'd know who.
He's another author.
You people believe this? I gotta show Greta who Wilford Brimley is.
Sorry. He's an actor.
He's this guy.
Oh, that guy.
Yeah. He was on Yellowstone, right? We watched. Yeah, we remember that.
He was on Yellowstone.
Yeah, but normally he plays a much more lovable character. But he was on Yellowstone, is the most recent thing we've seen him in. So
yeah. Okay. Fair. Okay, that's actually really funny. But yeah, Wendell Berry. But anyway, as I was saying, that it had been only a few years since I read Jayber Crow through the first time. And the second time, I just loved it that much more.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it'll be good to reread the Silmarillion. Like I think I'll get a lot more out of it.
I'm glad to hear you recover like that, because at first you looked like you were going to cry.
Yeah. Did I really?
I just surprised. I was totally like I was trying to remind myself to say something about what the plan was before we started recording the podcast, but we kind of got to it a little later than we planned to today. So it's just like, let's dive in and do this. And I was like, I really hope Greta's okay with this. All right. So
yeah, no, that'll be good.
No, so that's our plan, right? So chapter by chapter walkthrough of the Silmarillion, we'll be covering all the news as it comes up, right, with the shows and everything. But I just don't want to become there's enough What's Happening Now in Middle Earth podcasts and shows and other things like that out there. I'm just not interested in being that show. I
mean, like you said, we're still going to talk about that stuff.
We're still going to talk. I'm just not interested in having that be our emphasis.
That's just, we're not going to do like a 180 and just we're a 90. I don't know, but we're just kind of insert it into our reread.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
We'll talk about those things as they come up. And remember, the Silmarillion is not nearly as long as Lord of the Rings, right? It took us a little longer last time because we kind of jumped around. We did like 10 chapters and we kind of jumped around, did a little other works, but I want to kind of get through it in one sequence this time. And then we'll have, by that time, I think we'll probably be getting close to when the show is out, right? And the other thing that I'd like to get to next year is actually to do a series on the short stories, like the non-Middle Earth short stories. So we've done a few, right, on the podcast in the past. We've done Leaf by Niggle in particular, but there's one I've been reading Rohirrim for the first time as of late, and it's really like kind of fun little work. So I think that's one we'll actually try to do before the end of the year this year. Awesome. It's actually like a novella. It's actually not a short story. It's more like a novella, which are, Tolkien's short stories tend to be like that, novellas. But we've got that. You got Smith of Wooten Major. You got Farmer Giles of Ham. You've got and a few others, right? Mr. Bliss. These things we've never actually talked about on the podcast before, and I do want to get to those. And I'm thinking that maybe after we hit the Silmarillion again, it'll be a great time. But I just feel like there's gonna be so many people who are new to the Silmarillion, who are going to want to know more in this coming year, and we're here for that, right?
Yeah, I think it'll tie together really nicely.
The other thing is, it was the very first thing we did on this podcast, and so we were complete newbies when it came to the whole podcasting thing. And honestly, you and I have learned so much about the Legendarium by doing this, right? That I feel like going back to it, we're going to have even better discussions.
Yeah,
we're going to make even deeper connections. And we're going to be like, oh yeah, I remember, this is from, this is different from how it was in like the first version of this story from the history of Middle Earth. Right.
Yeah.
There's so much to talk about. We've gained so much perspective in the time since we really dove into the Silmarillion.
Yeah. I think it's gonna be even richer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Maybe I won't sound like such a clueless dork that you'll have to mansplain everything to me.
No mansplaining zone anymore.
Nope. Yeah. I'll be able to hold my own. Just watch.
Right.
Just watch.
Boom. All right. So that leads us to the final question here. How you can join the Fellowship of the Road for this mission, right? That's all of us, right? We're the Tolkien Road. We're the Fellowship of the Road right here. All right. So we need your help, right? We need your help for this mission. It is a sacred mission that we're going on this year, going into the Silmarillion, maybe introducing many people that have never read it before to it. Like many of you were introduced to the Silmarillion through this podcast. We've heard from many of you who were able to make it through for the first time because of this podcast. That's an amazing thing to hear. Anytime we hear, every time we hear that, it's like cha-ching, right?
And I'm one of you guys too.
I can feel Tolkien high-fiving me from across the Great Divide, right? I can feel the high five from Tolkien spirit across the Great Divide. Stuff. Whenever anybody says, Carswell's, your podcast helped me get through the Silmarillion, he's like, boom. Thanks, Carswell's.
We know how dear it was to him too. Yeah.
I'm like, you're welcome, Ron. You're welcome. All right. So here's how you can join us on this mission. If you're not already a patron, please become one. Right? More on that in just a second. If you are already a patron, thank you. Thank you so much. Please continue to support us. And if this vision gets your juices flowing, get your passion amped up, consider an annual pledge or renewing at the next highest tier of support. And here's what we're offering. This is a special offer, and this is going to last through the end of the year. Starting right now until 2022 hits, annual pledges get you 2 months free, right? Normally it's been 1 month free. Now you get 2 months free, right? From the time you view this episode or listen to this episode until the end of 2021, you're going to get 2 months free when you make an annual pledge to the Tolkien Road. Additionally, for those who pledge annually at the $5 per month Elrond level, you'll immediately get your choice of a signed copy of one of my books, right? So That's not something we normally offer. That's only for the annual pledges during this period. If you pledge at the $10 per month or above level annually, you'll get both books, right?
And they'll both be signed?
Both signed copies, yeah. So Tolkien's Overture and Tolkien's Requiem. And that's an addition. So that's $10 per month, or that's the executive producer level, right? Which you get, named as an executive producer at the beginning of each episode. That's in addition to the stuff you already get when you sign up. So I don't know about you, Greta, but I think that's a pretty sweet deal.
Yeah, it is a pretty sweet deal.
Pretty sweet deal. 2 months free, and then free books depending on what you sign up, what level of annual pledge you sign up for.
Maybe 2 free books.
Well, so there is a $3 tier, and that's not going to get a free book for you, but you can still annual pledge and save yourself 2 months of, save yourself 2 months of pledges that way.
Still a good deal.
Yeah. And you get all the other stuff that you'd normally get too, right? With that. Yep. So, I do need to say though, for those who live outside the US, I'm still offering this, but I will please note that we'll need to discuss the matter of shipping for those books, because it does cost more to ship outside the US than, and sometimes significantly more depending on where it's being shipped to. I want to hook you guys up. So just before you make your pledge, or you can make your pledge and then contact me about shipping, and we'll talk about what that is. But for those inside the US, it's all included as part of your pledge, right? So
cool.
Hope that makes sense to everybody. If it doesn't, reach out to me, ask, happy to answer your questions. All right. So y'all, we got a lot of work to do, and we need your support to make it happen. So
it's going to be so fun.
It's
going to be so fun.
I am extremely excited.
I really am too.
I'm frankly, like, I'm always thinking a lot about what do we do next? What do we do next? And I really thought, man, let's go back to the Silmarillion. Let's just go back to where it all started, because this is going to be the year that so many people are like, I need to read the Silmarillion before the show starts, right? They're going to want to read it. Because guys, I've heard, the rumors sound like that that a significant amount, it's not just going to be a Calibaith lore, but it's going to be a significant amount of that first age lore, and even before, is going to be involved in this show, right? People, when they hear that, they're going to want to know, what is this Silmarillion thing? And so that's, we want to give our best take, our most knowledgeable take on all of those stories, all of those chapters, so that people can be ready for this show and really be knowledgeable and dive into what Tolkien himself had to say.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Perfect.
All right. So head on over to patreon.com/TolkienRoad, or go to any web episode on our website, tolkienroad.com, and look for that orange button, and that'll take you there as well. So that's how you sign up to become a patron. That's how you can boost your pledge. That's how you can make that annual pledge and get those 2 months free, and depending on what level, get those free books. So right on.
Sounds fantastic.
Greta.
Yeah.
Great app.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Totally great app.
Any final thoughts? You excited? You sound pretty excited about this.
I'm stoked.
You were a little uncertain at first about the whole Silmarillion dropping thing, but then you're like, I can get on board with that.
I just needed a minute.
Yeah.
I need a minute, kind of like process it and let it sink in. No, but yeah, I'm really excited. I think it's gonna be really, really good. Yeah. I feel like I've gotten smarter since we started this podcast. And I feel like I've grown to love Tolkien more since we started this podcast, and really appreciate his vision and just Middle Earth as a whole. So yeah, I'm looking forward to going back to the very beginning.
I'm going to say this about you too. Like, you are a reading machine, far and above what I am. And I think that's something I really like. I feel like you've become more and more of over the last 5 years, probably since we did this. I can't keep pace with how much she reads, honestly. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Well, it's true. Like, you're a disciplined reader, and so I think just reading the volume of what you do, and being you're a very attentive reader too. I think this second time around with the Silmarillion, you're going to bring like a lot of additional great insights to it as well. So
I hope so. I hope so.
I'm really looking forward, and especially now that you've kind of got your feet on the ground with respect to this lore, I think it's going to be great to dive into it with you. And honestly, I had my feet on the ground before, but I've got my feet even firmer on the ground, and like I know what's underground too with a lot of these things. So anyway,
yeah, I'm excited.
I'm excited too. I hope you guys are really excited.
Yeah, please join us on this journey. Continue if you haven't already joined us, join us. And if you already have joined us, continue.
That's right.
Yes. That's
What
what I
she
was trying
said.
to say.
What she said. That was almost a very like Bilbo-ish quote somehow, but you know.
It kind of, yeah, now that you say that, yes, that you're right. It was inspired. I just didn't know it at the time.
Right on.
Yes.
All right, y'all.
Okay.
Thanks for watching this episode.
Yes, thanks, guys.
And oh yeah, let's do our let's say thank you to our patrons.
Oh, yes.
Thank you to our amazing patrons, especially the following: Andrew T,
John R,
Ms. Anonymous,
Redhawk,
Kaitlyn of Tea with Tolkien,
Shannon S,
Brian O,
Emilio P,
Zeke F,
James A,
James L,
Chris L,
Chuck F,
Asya V,
Ish of the Hammer,
Teresa C,
David of Pints with Jack,
Jonathan D,
Eric S,
Eric B,
Johanna T,
Mike M,
Robert H,
Paul D,
Julia,
and Werty,
as well as those celebrating their Patreon anniversary in November, Matthew F.
and James.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you, guys.
We appreciate y'all, and we shall talk to you next time.
Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.